We're now going to look at Marxist feminism. The basic beliefs at the heart of Marxist feminism is that women's oppression is connected to the economic system of capitalism, that we cannot understand the nature of the exploitation without turning towards capitalism and how it benefits. Men may benefit, but capitalism is ultimately the main beneficiary from women performing these particular roles. The key source of women's subordination is ultimately in their role as an unpaid homemaker. And some key theorists in this area are Barrett, Ansley, Hartman and Walby. Dependency within the family. Benson has argued that women under capitalism are dependent on men. I mean, the basic way of thinking about this is men get paid more than women. And traditionally men have been the breadwinner, and therefore women are dependent upon men and therefore subject to the controls of men because they lack power. In her analysis, Benson looks at how women are a source of cheap, exploited labour. For employers, they are paid less, and it is assumed that they are dependent on their husband's earnings and therefore they don't need to be paid as much, as crazy as that might sound to us. Women are a reserve army of labour who can be drawn upon in times of need by the capitalist system. They can be moved in and out of employment and treated as marginal workers, often part-time, entering through periods of their lives outside of childbearing, etc. And women reproduce the labour force. They ultimately they produce children. They nourish and raise those children to become future workers. They service their working husbands, maintaining their energy levels, and therefore ensuring there's a steady flow of cannon fodder, I guess, for the capitalist system. It is women who are doing this, and women who are doing this for no charge at all. A bit like me going down to the garage with my car to get a service and basically not paying the mechanic at the end of it. And as Ansley, as you all know, Ansley, from looking at the family, women absorb the frustration of men. The bottom line is capitalist employment, the economy is alienating. It oppresses, it makes people feel powerless and worthless, and these workers come home each day and they are frustrated at being at the bottom of the pile. And they walk through the door, and to think about it, they sort of are the boss man in their own kingdom. They take their frustrations out on their wives, whether this is domestic violence or other forms of abuse. This boosts their self-esteem because they are in control. They no longer are experiencing a sense of powerlessness, and the next day they return to work re-energised and ready to be oppressed again. This kind of a conveyor belt between home and work and home. The key thing for Marxists is this is a very beneficial function for capitalism. It means that the family is a buffer to revolution. The family absorbs all of the tension which otherwise would be thrown at the capitalist system and possibly lead to revolution. Another concern for Marxist feminists is the ideology of feminism. Barrett notes it's not just the economic dimension and the capitalist economy we need to be concerned about. It's the fact that women's roles are tied into a certain set of ideas, a construct about how women should be, which affects their consciousness, which in turn maintains their oppression. A kind of ideological conditioning which exists within the capitalist system. And she pays particular attention to marriage and the housewife role, how many women have this ideal of being married and fulfilling a particular set of roles as part of womanhood, that the nuclear family is normal, that this is desirable, that this is a goal, and actually this is a kind of a false consciousness. It's a kind of compensation, it's a kind of pipe dream, I guess, But this false consciousness is produced by this ideology of feminism, and it helps to control women and maintains them their conformity. And finally, Barrett believes we need to overthrow this ideology as well as overthrow capitalism if women are to be truly liberated. So, a very brief evaluation. The Marxist feminists, they do highlight economic issues and the link to economic capitalism and the oppression of women. But they don't explain how in non-capitalist societies the oppression of women, the subordination there, still exists in many of those countries. They also don't really unpack the nature of unpaid domestic labour. It might benefit capitalism, but they just sort of state that. They don't really get to the roots of the origins of it, and they don't unpack it in that much detail. And finally, I guess it's more of a radical feminist view. They look at male dominance, but not enough is said about the ways that men, including working class men, oppress women, and the nature of that oppression, and how that male dominance is more an issue around patriarchy rather than something around capitalism.